I still remember the day I called my mother to tell her I was engaged. I was 27, sitting in the coffee shop where Marcus had proposed just an hour earlier, my hand still trembling as I looked at the simple diamond ring catching the afternoon light. My heart was so full it felt like it might burst. "Mom," I said when she picked up, trying to keep my voice steady. "Marcus asked me to marry him. We're engaged." There was a pause. Not the gasp of joy I'd imagined 1,000 times. Not the tears or the immediate plans to fly out and celebrate. Just a pause and then, "That's nice, Caroline. Listen, I'm at Brianna's school event right now. Can I call you back?" She didn't call back that day, or the next. When she finally did, 3 days later, it was a quick, distracted conversation sandwiched between picking up my half-sister from gymnastics and making dinner. "So have you set a date?" she asked, and I could hear her rummaging through something in the background. "We're thinking next September," I said. "Something small, intimate. Maybe at the Botanical Gardens in September." "That's Brianna's birthday month, honey. You know how big of a deal her 12th birthday is going to be. We've been planning it for months." My throat tightened. "It's just one day, Mom. I'm sure we can work around. I just think you should be considerate. That's all. Anyway, I have to go. Brianna needs help with her math homework." "Congratulations again, sweetheart." The line went dead, and I sat there staring at my phone, feeling that familiar hollow ache spread through my chest. It was the same feeling I'd carried since I was 12 years old, since the day my parents sat me down in our living room in Michigan and told me they were getting divorced. Since the day everything changed. I was their only child back then. My mother, Patricia, had been a high school English teacher who read me poetry before bed. My father, Dennis, worked in automotive sales and taught me how to change a tire when I was 10. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Or at least I thought we were. The divorce was swift and cold. My mother met Raymond at a teachers' conference in Chicago. He was a successful real estate developer, 15 years older than her, with a big house in the suburbs and an even bigger bank account. Within 6 months, she'd moved in with him. Within a year, they were married. Within 2 years, Brianna was born. My father spiraled. He started drinking more, working less. He moved into a cramped apartment across town and spent most of his weekends on the couch watching football. When I visited him every other weekend, he'd order pizza and barely speak. The man who'd once taken me fishing and taught me the names of constellations became a ghost of himself. By the time I was 15, the visits had dwindled to once a month. By 17, just holidays. He'd remarry eventually, to a woman named Gloria who had 2 sons of her own. Boys who played hockey and took up all the space in a house that never quite felt like it had room for me. But my mother's new life was somehow worse, because I was there. I saw it all. I watched as she poured everything into Brianna, the golden child born into wealth and opportunity. Private schools, piano lessons, travel soccer, every achievement celebrated with elaborate parties and expensive gifts. I was the reminder of her old life. The before. The mistake she'd polished over with a new marriage and a new daughter. When I graduated high school with honors, Raymond took us all to dinner at Applebee's. When Brianna made the honor roll in 4th grade, they threw a catered party at the country club. When I got accepted to Michigan State with a partial scholarship, my mother said, "That's wonderful, honey," and then spent the rest of the evening planning Brianna's summer trip to France. I learned early to need nothing, to expect nothing, to build a life where I was the main character, because in theirs, I was barely a footnote. College was where I found myself. I majored in accounting, not because I loved numbers, but because I loved the certainty of them. Debits and credits, everything balanced, everything made sense. I worked 2 part-time jobs to cover what my scholarship didn't, graduated with minimal debt, and landed a position at a mid-sized firm in Detroit by the time I was 23. That's where I met Marcus. He was a project manager for a construction company, tall and steady, with warm brown eyes and a laugh that made everything feel lighter. He wasn't flashy or wealthy. He drove a 10-year-old Civic and saved half his paycheck like clockwork. But he saw me, really saw me. He noticed when I was quiet, when the weight of being forgotten pressed heavy on my shoulders. He'd hold my hand and say, "You're not invisible to me, Caroline. You never will be. We dated for 3 years before he proposed, and in that time, he became my family. His parents, Maria and Robert, treated me like a daughter from day one. Sunday dinners at their house were warm and loud, filled with laughter and stories and the kind of uncomplicated love I'd spent my whole life craving. When we got engaged, they cried happy tears. They hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. They immediately started making plans, offering to help with anything we needed. My parents, they barely noticed. Planning the wedding was like trying to paint a masterpiece with one hand tied behind my back. Marcus and I did everything ourselves, or with help from his parents. We chose the venue, a beautiful old estate with gardens that bloomed in September. We found a photographer, a caterer, a DJ. We spent weekends addressing invitations by hand, our fingers cramping as we wrote out name after name. I sent my mother and Raymond an invitation with a handwritten note. Would love for you to be there. Hope you can make it. I sent my father and Gloria one too, with the same message. I didn't call to follow up. I couldn't bear to hear the excuses. My mother called 2 months before the wedding. Caroline, about your wedding, she said, her voice already carrying the weight of disappointment. Raymond and I have been talking, and September 23rd is really difficult for us. Brianna has a national soccer tournament that weekend in California, and we've already paid for the flights and hotel. I sat in silence, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I'm sure you understand, she continued. This is a huge opportunity for her. College scouts will be there. We can't miss it. It's my wedding, Mom. I know. And I'm so sorry, honey. But you're an adult. You'll have plenty of weddings in your life. This is Brianna's moment. Plenty of weddings? I repeated, my voice hollow. I'm getting married once. That's kind of the point. Don't be dramatic. We'll celebrate when we see you at Thanksgiving or something. Send us pictures. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there on the couch, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dead air. Marcus found me there an hour later. Tears dried on my cheeks, staring at nothing. She's not coming, I whispered. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands. Then we'll have a wedding so beautiful that her absence will be her loss, not yours, my father called a week later. Gloria's boys have a hockey championship that day, he said. No preamble, no warmth. We have to be there. You know how it is, do I? I asked. Come on, Caroline. Don't make this harder than it is. I'm not making anything hard. I'm just getting married. I thought maybe, for once, I could be the priority. He sighed. That familiar sound of exhaustion that had defined our relationship for years. You're being selfish. These boys worked hard all season, and I've worked my whole life to feel like I mattered to you. The line went quiet. Then, I'll try to make it, but don't count on it. He didn't make it. Neither of them did. September 23rd was the most beautiful day of my life, and the most painful. The gardens were in full bloom, golden sunlight filtering through the trees. Marcus stood at the altar in his navy suit, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. His parents sat in the front row, Maria dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, the rows where my parents should have been. Empty. I walked down the aisle alone, not given away, but choosing my own path. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, there was only silence and love and the sound of my heart stitching itself back together in a new shape. We danced under string lights. We cut the cake and laughed with friends. We celebrated life and love and the family we were building together. But late that night in our hotel room, I cried into Marcus's chest. They didn't even send a card, I whispered. Not even a text. He held me tight, stroking my hair. Then we build our own life. One where their absence doesn't get to define your worth. And that's exactly what we did. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The year after our wedding, everything changed. Not overnight, but in a slow, deliberate transformation that I built with my own two hands. I'd been working at the accounting firm, steady and reliable, but I was restless. I'd always been good with numbers, but more than that, I understood people. I understood what they wanted, what they needed, what they were willing to pay for. Marcus saw it too. You're too smart to be running other people's books, he said one night over dinner. You should be running your own business, Doing what? I asked. Consulting. Financial planning. You help small businesses all day long for a salary. Why not help them for equity or profit sharing? The idea took root. I started small, taking on clients in the evenings. Local restaurants, construction companies, family-owned shops that were drowning in disorganized finances. I built them systems. I saved them money. I showed them how to grow. Within 6 months, I had enough clients to quit my job. Within a year, I had to hire an assistant. Within 2 years, I had a team of 5 in an office in downtown Detroit with windows overlooking the river. The money came faster than I expected. Businesses I'd saved from bankruptcy sent me referrals. My reputation spread. By the time I turned 31, my consulting firm was bringing in 7 figures annually. And Marcus and I had paid off our modest house, built up investments, and started talking about the future with a kind of security I'd never imagined possible. During those years, my parents barely called. My mother would text every few months, generic messages like "hope you're well" or "thinking of you." No questions about my life, my business, my marriage. Just the kind of surface-level pleasantries you'd send to a distant acquaintance. I'd see photos on Facebook of Brianna's accomplishments. Her acceptance to Northwestern. Her internship at a marketing firm in New York. Her perfect, curated life funded by Raymond's money and my mother's undivided attention. I stopped expecting anything different. I stopped hoping they'd wake up one day and realize what they'd missed. I just focused on building something they could never touch or diminish. And then, on a warm Saturday in May, Marcus and I walked into a Porsche dealership. We'd been talking about upgrading my car for months. I'd been driving the same Toyota Camry since college, reliable but aging, and I wanted something that reflected how far I'd come. Not to show off, just to celebrate, to mark the moment. How about that one? Marcus said, pointing to a sleek silver Porsche 911 Carrera in the showroom, its curves catching the light like liquid metal. My heart skipped. That's too much, is it? He smiled, squeezing my hand. You've built an incredible business, Caroline. You've earned this. And honestly, I think it'd be pretty sexy to see you behind the wheel. The salesman approached, all polish and charm. And 2 hours later, I was signing papers for a $135,000 Porsche 911 Carrera. Silver with black leather interior. A machine that purred like a dream and drove like freedom. When I slid into the driver's seat for the first time, hands gripping the leather-wrapped steering wheel, I felt something shift inside me. Not validation from the car itself, but validation from the fact that I'd done this. Me, the forgotten daughter. The kid who worked 2 jobs in college and learned to need nothing from anyone. I'd built a life so full and so complete that I could spend 6 figures on a car and not blink. Marcus followed me home in his truck, and I drove through the streets of Detroit with the windows down, the engine growling beneath me, feeling like I was shedding an old skin. I posted a single photo on Facebook that night, just a car, parked in our driveway at sunset, with the caption, "New chapter, new ride." That's when they noticed me again. My mother called the next morning. Not texted. Called. "Caroline," she said, her voice bright and loud. "I saw your post. Is that your car? A Porsche?" "Yeah," I said casually, putting her on speaker as I made coffee. "Bought it yesterday." "Oh my God, honey. That's incredible. You must be doing so well. Raymond and I were just talking about how we need to visit you. It's been way too long." I stirred sugar into my coffee, saying nothing. "Brianna would love to see you too," she continued, filling the silence. "She's always asking about her big sister. Maybe we could all come to Detroit for a weekend? Brianna asks about me," I said, unable to keep the skepticism out of my voice. "Of course. You're her sister." I almost laughed. Brianna, who I'd seen maybe 5 times in the last 3 years. Brianna, who barely knew me. But sure, she was always asking. "We should plan something," my mother pressed. "Maybe we could take you to dinner? Celebrate your success?" "My success," I repeated slowly. "You mean the business I've been building for the last 4 years that you've never once asked about?" A pause. "Well, you know how busy we've been with Brianna's college and right, of course. So what do you say? Dinner next month?" I took a long sip of my coffee. I'll think about it. My father called that afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Caroline, he said gruffly, saw you got yourself a fancy car. I did. Must be making good money. I am. Another pause. Listen, I know we haven't been great about staying in touch, but Gloria and I were thinking we should get together. Maybe come down for a weekend. See your place. Catch up. Catch up, I echoed. We haven't had a real conversation in 2 years, Dad. I know. But you're doing well now, and I'm proud of you. Something in my chest twisted. You're proud of me now? Because of a car? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He fumbled for words. Just that. You've made something of yourself. Despite everything. Despite everything. Despite them. Look, he said, clearing his throat. Gloria's boys are out of the house now. We've got more time. We want to be more involved in your life. Now that it looks successful. Don't be like that. I closed my eyes, feeling that old familiar anger rising up. I'll let you know, over the next 2 weeks. My phone lit up with messages from both of them. My mother sent photos of Brianna, as if I cared about her volleyball tournament or her new apartment. My father sent awkward texts asking about Marcus and whether we were thinking about kids. They were circling like sharks, drawn by the blood in the water. And the blood was money. Success! The proof that I'd made it despite them. I told Marcus about the calls one night as we sat on the back porch, watching fireflies blink in the darkness. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to tell them to go to hell, but another part wants them to see what they missed. He finished gently. I nodded. Is that petty? It's human. I thought about it for days, and then I made a decision. I invited them both to dinner. My mother and Raymond. My father and Gloria. Separate emails. Same message. Let's catch up. Dinner at our place. Next Saturday at 6. Neither of them questioned why. They just both said yes. That week I prepared. Not food. A presentation. I printed financial statements from my business. Awards. News articles featuring my firm. Client testimonials. I created a folder for each of them, organized and labeled. I wasn't going to feed them dinner and small talk. I was going to show them exactly what they'd missed while they were too busy raising their preferred children. Saturday came. Marcus and I set the table with our nicest dishes. I made a simple roast chicken, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. Nothing fancy. I wasn't trying to impress them with my cooking. My mother and Raymond arrived first, both of them dressed like they were going to a country club fundraiser. My mother hugged me, too tight and too perfumed, exclaiming over our house, our renovations, the photos on the walls. You've done so well for yourself. She kept saying, her eyes scanning everything like she was appraising it. My father and Gloria arrived 10 minutes later, more subdued but equally curious. Gloria complimented my dress. My father shook Marcus's hand and commented on the Porsche in the driveway. Hell of a car, he said. What do you do again, Marcus? Project management, construction, and Caroline's in accounting? Financial consulting, I corrected. I own my own firm. Right, he said. But I could tell he didn't really understand. We sat down to dinner, and the conversation was stilted, awkward, full of gaps where history should have been. My mother talked about Brianna's job prospects. Raymond talked about his latest real estate deal. My father and Gloria discussed their upcoming cruise. No one asked about our wedding. No one mentioned their absence. No one apologized. Finally, halfway through the meal, I set down my fork. I want to show you all something, I said. I retrieved the folders from the kitchen and placed one in front of each of them. They opened them slowly, confusion flickering across their faces. This is my business, I said calmly. The one I built from nothing while you were all busy with your other priorities. My mother stared at the financial statements, her lips parting slightly. Caroline, these numbers, 7 figures annually, I said. I have a team of 12 now. We've won regional awards for small business growth. I've been featured in 3 industry publications, all in the last 4 years. Raymond flipped through the pages, his expression unreadable. My father looked stunned, like he was seeing a stranger. Why are you showing us this? My mother asked, her voice small, Because you never asked, I said. In 4 years, you never once asked how the business was going. You never asked about my marriage, my life, anything. But the moment you saw a Porsche in my driveway, suddenly you're interested. Suddenly you want to visit. Suddenly I exist again. Honey, that's not fair, isn't it? I looked at my mother, then my father. You didn't come to my wedding. Neither of you. The most important day of my life, and you chose soccer tournaments and hockey games instead. You didn't call. You didn't send cards. You just weren't there. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We made a mistake. We know that now. You made a mistake? I repeated, my voice rising. You made a choice. You chose Brianna. You chose Gloria's boys. You chose everyone except me, over and over again. For 15 years, we were trying to blend families, my father said weakly. It's complicated. No, Dad, it's simple. You had a daughter. You forgot about her because she wasn't shiny enough, new enough, convenient enough. And now that I've made something of myself, now that I have money and success, you suddenly remember I exist. The table fell silent. Gloria stared at her plate. Raymond cleared his throat uncomfortably. My mother was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. I don't want your guilt, I said quietly. And I don't want your sudden interest. I wanted parents. I wanted people who showed up when it mattered, not when it was impressive. But I don't need you anymore. I have a husband who loves me. I have in-laws who treat me like family. I built a life so full that your absence doesn't leave a hole. Caroline, my father started, but I held up a hand. You can finish your dinner or you can leave. But either way, don't call me again unless you're willing to show up for who I am, not what I have. Because the Porsche? That's just a car. The real accomplishment is that I became someone worth knowing despite you, not because of you. My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I can't do this, she said, grabbing her purse. Raymond followed, and they left without another word. My father and Gloria stayed a moment longer. He looked at me with something like regret, or maybe just discomfort. I'm sorry, he said finally, for all of it. I know, I said, but sorry doesn't give me back the years you missed. They left too. And then it was just Marcus and me, sitting at a table full of half-eaten food and heavy silence. You okay? He asked. I took a shaky breath, feeling tears prick my eyes. But underneath the sadness was something else. Something lighter. Yeah, I said. I think I am. He reached across the table and took my hand, and we sat there together as the sun set outside our windows, painting the world in shades of gold. 3 months later, my mother called. Not to apologize exactly, but to ask if we could try again. She wanted to meet for coffee, just the two of us. No Raymond, no Brianna, just her and me. I thought about saying no. It would have been easier, cleaner, but I said yes. We met at a small cafe near my office. She looked older than I remembered, her hair grayer, her hands trembling slightly as she held her coffee cup. I've been going to therapy, she said after a long silence, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I made you feel invisible. I stirred my latte, saying nothing. I think I was so desperate to make my second marriage work, she continued, to prove I hadn't made a mistake leaving your father, that I poured everything into this new life, this new daughter, and I didn't see that I was abandoning my first daughter in the process. You saw it, I said quietly. You just didn't care enough to stop. She flinched but nodded. You're right, I saw it. And I told myself you were fine. You were independent, capable. You didn't need me the way Brianna did. But that was a lie I told myself to justify my choices. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Real ones this time, not performative. I can't undo the past, she said. I can't give you back your wedding day or the years I missed. But I want to try to be the mother I should have been. If you let me. I looked at her across the table. This woman who'd given me life and then made me feel like I was barely living in hers. And I felt something crack open inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. I need you to understand something, I said. I don't need you anymore. I've built a life without you. A good life. And I'm not going to beg for your attention or compete for your love. I know. But if you want to be part of my life now, you have to show up. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when it makes you look good. You have to actually care. I will, she whispered. I promise I will. We didn't hug when we left the cafe. We didn't make plans for Sunday dinners or family holidays. But we exchanged phone numbers. And 2 days later, she texted me. Not a generic thinking of you, but a real message. I read an article about financial consulting and thought of you. Are you free for lunch next week? I'd love to hear about your work. It was a small thing, a tiny gesture, but it was something. My father never called back. Gloria sent me a Christmas card that year, but there was no note inside, just our signatures. I didn't expect anything more, and honestly, I was okay with that, because the truth I learned that year, sitting in my Porsche with the engine humming beneath me, driving through the streets of the city I'd made my own, is this: your worth is not determined by who shows up for you. It's determined by who you become when they don't. I became a woman who builds empires from nothing, who loves deeply and chooses carefully, who doesn't wait for permission or validation from people who didn't earn the right to give it. And when I look in the rearview mirror now, I don't see the girl who walked down the aisle alone. I see the woman who built a life so full that their absence became irrelevant. The Porsche was never about the car. It was about the moment I realized I didn't need them to see me. I'd already seen myself, and that was enough.